For 30 years, Johnny Carson reigned as the unshakable king of late-night television. His ability to host presidents, soothe nervous celebrities, and trade witty remarks with comedians was unmatched, making him a true master of the talk show format. Yet, despite his decades of experience and unmatched professionalism, Carson occasionally faced guests whose behavior challenged even his legendary composure. Behind the smooth charm and trademark smile that audiences saw on television lay moments of intense unpredictability and chaos, moments that revealed the fragile balance that live television demanded. Guests who appeared on The Tonight Show often followed unwritten rules that guided conversations, humor, and decorum. Yet, when these boundaries were crossed, the results were unforgettable. Unlike today's heavily managed television appearances, the 1970s and 1980s allowed for unpredictability, and sometimes that unpredictability turned into pure spectacle. Celebrities of the era could arrive on stage with little oversight, unsupervised by publicists or corporate handlers, creating an environment in which anything could happen, from verbal outbursts to physical antics, from shocking comments to dramatic exits. These unhinged moments were rare, but when they occurred, they made television history. Even a host as controlled as Carson, who had conducted thousands of interviews and navigated countless personalities, occasionally found himself in situations that tested his patience, quick thinking, and poise. Understanding these moments helps viewers appreciate the skill required to maintain control in the face of unpredictability and chaos, highlighting why Carson remains a benchmark for talk show hosts even decades after his final broadcast point. One of the earliest and most infamous examples of a guest shaking Carson's composure was Arnold Schwarzenegger. During a 1979 appearance intended to promote the bodybuilding documentary Pumping Iron, long before the Austrian-born athlete became a Hollywood superstar in Governor, California, Schwarzenegger was a young, confident bodybuilder with immense charisma and almost no filter. Carson, who was accustomed to interviewing athletes, initially asked him simple questions about training routines and competitions. However, when the topic turned to the sensation of the pump, Schwarzenegger's description shocked both the audience and the host. Comparing muscle engorgement to a sexual experience, Schwarzenegger spoke with enthusiasm and graphic detail that far exceeded what network television had ever allowed. The audience fell silent, and Carson's polite smile was replaced with an expression of genuine discomfort, his fingers nervously tugging at his tie, a familiar signal to attentive viewers that he was momentarily out of his depth. The moment exemplified the tension between celebrity candor and television norms. Schwarzenegger, oblivious to the social rules he was breaking, continued elaborating on his muscular development with strikingly sexualized language, forcing producers to signal Carson to steer the conversation back to safer ground. After the segment ended, Carson joked his longtime announcer Ed McMahon about the incident, noting that the network might not approve of such vivid commentary. The appearance, though uncomfortable, did not derail Schwarzenegger's burgeoning career. Instead, it foreshadowed the bold, unfiltered personality that would eventually make him a global icon. For Carson, the encounter was a reminder that even the most composed host could face moments of genuine surprise, requiring him to think quickly, maintain professionalism, and protect the integrity of the broadcast while handling unpredictable guests. Another unforgettable example of chaos came from Burt Reynolds and Dom DeLuise in 1974. Reynolds, a Hollywood heartthrob known for his charm, and DeLuise, a comedian renowned for his physical comedy, appeared together on The Tonight Show for what was meant to be a standard interview. The session quickly descended into an unscripted battle of slapstick antics involving whipped cream, water, and complete disregard for television decorum. What began as a playful demonstration of cooking techniques escalated into an all-out food fight, culminating in Carson's pristine suit being covered in whipped cream. While Carson maintained his signature smile, his body language indicated tension and irritation, revealing that even the most lighthearted chaos could challenge his control. The segment disrupted the precise timing of the show, requiring extended commercial breaks and extensive cleanup. The aftermath demonstrated Carson's patience, professionalism, and ability to manage unpredictable situations with grace. Reynolds and DeLuise, though partners in creating the chaos, were invited back on the show separately in subsequent years, highlighting the enduring rapport between Carson and his guests despite the occasional eruption of disorder. This incident serves as a prime example of how live television in that era allowed spontaneity to flourish, creating moments of both laughter and tension that are nearly impossible in today's tightly controlled broadcasts. Other unhinged guests pushed Carson to navigate more sensitive challenges, particularly when personal boundaries or social norms were dramatically breached. Hungarian-born actress and socialite Zaza Gabor, a frequent guest, stunned Carson during a 1979 appearance by producing a gold bikini from her purse and recounting sexually explicit encounters involving prominent men. The segment was visually and verbally provocative, leaving Carson momentarily speechless as he attempted to maintain professionalism. Despite the challenge, Carson managed the situation with subtle humor and careful steering of the conversation, preventing the segment from devolving entirely. In doing so, he demonstrated a rare ability to balance audience entertainment with personal decorum, preserving the integrity of the show while managing a guest who was entirely uninhibited by societal constraints. Gabor's appearance revealed a dimension of Carson's skill that went beyond wit or charm. It highlighted a capacity for negotiation, improvisation, and tact in handling situations that could easily escalate into public scandal. The network, meanwhile, monitored the broadcast nervously, aware that unscripted moments could provoke controversy, further underscoring the high stakes of live television and Carson's mastery in navigating them successfully. Few guests tested Johnny Carson's patience like Don Rickles, the Merchant of Venom, whose entire career was built on insult comedy. By the time Rickles appeared on The Tonight Show, both he and Carson were well aware of each other's styles. Yet, even familiarity could not fully prepare a host for the unpredictability of Rickles' live-fire humor. Unlike other comedians who relied on rehearsed bits or gentle teasing, Rickles thrived on improvisation, spontaneity, and the shock value of brutal honesty. He would often attack both the celebrity and the audience with equal ferocity, creating a high-wire act that required immense skill from Carson to manage. A 1977 appearance exemplifies this dynamic. Rickles opened by launching into a stream of rapid-fire insults, poking fun at the network executives, the audience, and even Carson himself. While the audience erupted in laughter, Carson maintained a smile that masked the tension beneath. The key to surviving a Rickles appearance was timing, poise, and a mastery of verbal fencing. Carson had to anticipate the comedian's next move, deflect potential disaster, and subtly regain control of the show without stifling the humor. It was a delicate balance. One misstep could make the host appear flustered or diminish the live energy of the broadcast. What made these moments especially intense was the live nature of the show. No edits, no safety net, and no guarantee that Rickles would stop. Carson's decades of experience allowed him to navigate these tense encounters with skill that seemed effortless to viewers. His reactions, a raised eyebrow, a deadpan quip, or a momentary pause, were carefully calibrated to signal authority while still allowing the comedy to shine. These appearances demonstrated the complexity of hosting live television. Humor was spontaneous, risk was constant, and the host's ability to adapt in real time was a difference between a legendary segment and a televised disaster. Rickles' unpredictability, combined with Carson's unmatched control, produced some of the most memorable and chaotic moments in late-night television history, cementing both men's reputations as masters of their craft. Rickles' comedy, however, was not limited to verbal assaults. On multiple occasions, he engaged in physical antics, creating chaos that required immediate response from Carson and his production team. In one episode, Rickles deliberately spilled water on the host's desk, then used it to stage an improvised gag involving a passing staff member. The spontaneity left the audience in stitches, but for Carson, it was a live exercise in crisis management. Producers in the control room signaled the need to adjust camera angles, while Carson had to maintain eye contact with the camera and keep the audience engaged. The segment, which lasted several minutes, is often cited by television historians as a masterclass in the art of improvisation under pressure. Carson's calm demeanor created a sense of stability, even as Rickles' antics threatened to turn the set into a comedic whirlwind. Viewers who watched without knowing the behind-the-scenes tension often assumed the chaos was perfectly scripted, highlighting Carson's unique ability to make disorder appear seamless. In reality, every Rickles segment was a careful dance. The host had to anticipate jokes, prevent accidents, and simultaneously deliver the charm that defined his persona. These moments underscored why Carson's reputation as a late-night pioneer was not just built on humor or charisma. It was built on the ability to survive and thrive amid unpredictable chaos. Yet, the unpredictability of guests like Rickles was not always rooted in comedy alone. Occasionally, guests entered the studio with personal grievances, erratic behavior, or unconventional agendas, creating tension beyond humor. One such instance involved actress Shelley Winters, whose appearances on The Tonight Show often veer between charm and confrontation. Known for her sharp tongue and candid opinions, Winters sometimes challenged Carson directly, questioning his questions or reacting dramatically to offhand remarks. On one notorious episode, she openly criticized network executives while making pointed comments about Carson's interviewing style. The audience, unsure how to react, shifted between laughter and stunned silence. Carson's response was measured, using his trademark wit to defuse tension while maintaining authority over the broadcast. These moments highlight the fragile balance of late-night television. The host must manage not only entertainment, but also unpredictable personalities, potential controversy, and the expectations of millions of viewers in real time. For every smooth, scripted interview, there existed the potential for a segment to spiral into chaos. Yet Carson's master allowed him to convert these moments into memorable television, reinforcing his enduring legacy as a host capable of handling even the most unhinged guests with poise and professionalism. While Johnny Carson had faced unpredictable comedians and eccentric actors, few guests challenged his composure like pop icon Madonna and literary figure Truman Capote. Both brought chaos to The Tonight Show, but in very different ways. Madonna's 1987 appearance occurred at the height of her provocateur era, during her Who's That Girl tour. Known for deliberately courting controversy, she entered the studio fully aware of her ability to unsettle audiences and hosts alike. From the moment she appeared, dressed in a revealing black lace outfit, it was clear she had no intention of performing the usual talk show dance of polite answers and measured charm. Unlike prior guests who flustered Carson through inadvertent missteps or impulsive behavior, Madonna's strategy was deliberate. She deliberately invaded the host's personal space, leaning close and maintaining a level of physical intimacy that was virtually unheard of on the show. Carson, trained to control both conversational and physical boundaries, was momentarily thrown. His usual calm demeanor flickered as he attempted to steer the conversation toward her upcoming film, but Madonna responded with audaciously sexual suggestions, winking and leaning toward him while describing scenes that had been cut for being too risque. The live audience reacted with a mix of laughter and shocked gasps, and behind the scenes, the production crew scrambled to manage the delicate situation. Network executives, fearing inappropriate content on live television, activated the 5-second delay multiple times during the segment, a rare move for The Tonight Show. Carson, never one to lose his cool, relied on humor and subtle verbal cues to regain some semblance of control. His jokes about Madonna's daring persona provided relief to the audience, while keeping the interview from descending into complete disorder. Yet even with decades of experience, Madonna succeeded in rattling a man who had interviewed the greatest stars of Hollywood and beyond. Her appearance exemplified a type of unhinged behavior rooted not in recklessness or intoxication, but in calculated audacity, the kind that tested the boundaries of what was acceptable on television while simultaneously producing unforgettable viewing. Truman Capote, in contrast, presented a different challenge. The author's decline from literary luminary to troubled public figure manifested in appearances that were at once fascinating and disturbing. By the mid-1970s, Capote's struggles with drugs and alcohol were increasingly visible, and his 1975 Tonight Show appearance revealed just how fragile his public persona had become. Walking unsteadily onto stage, Capote seemed disoriented, slurring his speech and struggling to maintain focus. For Carson, the situation was not a comedic challenge, but a human one. The host had to navigate a public breakdown, guiding the conversation carefully while showing genuine concern for Capote's well-being. Unlike moments with comedic or deliberately provocative guests, this was not about eliciting laughter or reacting to absurdity. It was about managing the dignity of a troubled individual while maintaining the show's flow. Capote rambled, referencing events and people confusingly, and at times appearing to forget the camera was on him. Carson's mastery of empathy and timing allowed him to gently redirect the interview, using questions as lifelines to anchor the conversation while preventing further embarrassment. Behind the scenes, producers arranged for Capote to be escorted safely after the show, with Carson personally ensuring someone watched over him. This display of compassion distinguished the host not only as a professional entertainer, but as a humane figure in an industry often focused on spectacle over substance. Both Madonna and Capote illustrate the spectrum of unhinged behavior Carson faced, one driven by calculated shock, the other by personal unraveling. The contrast highlights the multifaceted challenges of hosting live television. Carson's genius lay not only in wit and charm, but in his ability to adapt to each guest's unique unpredictability. With Madonna, he managed deliberate provocation, turning audacious behavior into memorable entertainment. With Capote, he confronted vulnerability and crisis with professionalism and care, safeguarding the guest's dignity while keeping the audience engaged. Together, these appearances underscore why Carson's legacy endures. He could handle humor, chaos, controversy, and crisis with equal skill, transforming potentially disastrous live moments into iconic television experiences. While Madonna and Truman Capote represent extremes of deliberate provocation and personal vulnerability, other guests tested Johnny Carson's composure through sheer unpredictability and outrageous antics. Arnold Schwarzenegger's 1979 appearance on The Tonight Show is a classic example of this. At the time, Arnold was a young, brash bodybuilder promoting the documentary Pumping Iron. His energy, confidence, and complete lack of a social filter immediately presented Carson with an unusual challenge. The conversation began with standard questions about training and competitions, but it quickly spiraled when Carson innocently asked Schwarzenegger to describe the pump, the surge of blood during intense exercise. Arnold responded with shocking sexual frankness, compared the feeling to an orgasm, describing in graphic terms that were virtually unthinkable for 1970s network television. The live audience fell silent, and Carson's polite smile shifted to visible discomfort. For the first time, viewers saw The Tonight Show host confronted not by humor or eccentricity, but by blunt and censored honesty that violated social norms. Carson attempted to redirect the conversation, but Arnold, oblivious to the boundaries he had crossed, continued unabashedly. Behind the scenes, producers scrambled, network executives called, and Carson's legendary composure was tested like never before. Despite the chaos, the segment became iconic, not just for Arnold's outrageousness, but for Carson's deft ability to manage the situation without losing dignity. In another legendary episode, Carson faced chaos of a different kind when Burt Reynolds and Dom DeLuise appeared together in 1974. Initially booked for a standard interview, the segment quickly devolved into a full-blown food fight. DeLuise brought a can of whipped cream, ostensibly for a cooking demonstration, but soon began spraying Reynolds, who retaliated by dumping water down DeLuise's pants. The studio audience erupted in laughter, and Carson, initially amused, became increasingly alarmed as the whipped cream flew onto the set and, eventually, onto his suit. This incident wasn't just comedic, it was disruptive, leaving the set drenched and Carson forced to navigate the chaos while maintaining professionalism. His signature smile remained, but those familiar with his work could discern genuine irritation behind it. Producers extended the commercial break to clean up the mess, and Carson later joked about Swiffer and cleaning products in his monologue. This segment highlights another side of unhinged guest behavior, playful and narcissic mischief that tested the logistics and timing of live television, demanding immediate problem-solving from the host. Zaza Gabor, the Hungarian-born actress and socialite, represents yet another unique kind of unpredictability. Known for her flamboyant persona and unabashed openness about her romantic life, Gabor shocked audiences and Carson alike in 1979 by producing a skimpy gold bikini from her purse and describing intimate encounters in graphic detail. Unlike other guests who relied on drunkenness, impulsiveness, or humor, Gabor's unhinged behavior stemmed from an extraordinary confidence and disregard for social boundaries. She even insisted that Carson hold the bikini against his chest, creating a surreal moment that left him both mortified and amused. The audience's laughter reflected not only Gabor's daring, but Carson's skill in navigating a situation that teetered between scandal and entertainment. Gabor's appearances exemplify the challenges of live television when guests are entirely uninhibited, testing the host's ability to balance decorum, humor, and audience engagement. Across these appearances, Schwarzenegger's graphic honesty, Reynolds and DeLucci's chaotic antics, Gabber's flamboyant provocations, Carson demonstrated an unparalleled versatility. Each guest posed a different form of unpredictability: raw physical energy, comedic mayhem, or bold personal revelation. What united these moments was Carson's ability to maintain control without stifling spontaneity. His techniques varied depending on the situation: subtle humor, quick thinking, redirection, or, when necessary, gentle intervention. Audiences witnessed not only the unpredictability of celebrity, but also the mastery of a host who could transform potential disasters into memorable television moments. These segments remain some of the most celebrated in Tonight Show history, illustrating how Carson's composure and intelligence allowed him to thrive amid chaos, making live television an art form in its own right. While some guests challenged Johnny Carson with outrageous antics or flamboyant provocations, others tested him with sheer unpredictability or explosive tempers. Comedian Red Fox, famous for his raunchy nightclub routines and volatile personality, presented a rare type of disruption during his 1975 appearance on The Tonight Show. At the time, NBC had implemented a no-smoking policy on set, which immediately clashed with Red Fox's habit and sense of stage identity. When informed he could not smoke, Fox's reaction was immediate and dramatic, reportedly exclaiming, "No smoke, no joke," a statement that left Carson visibly stunned. Despite attempts to redirect the conversation toward his hit sitcom Sanford and Son, Fox stood up abruptly, refused to perform under new restrictions, and walked off the set mid-interview. The live audience gasped, and for a moment, it seemed as though the carefully controlled world of late-night television had collapsed. Behind the scenes, producers scrambled to handle what was essentially a crisis, and network executives reportedly seethed over the disruption. Yet even in this tense situation, Carson's professionalism shone through. He calmly explained the sudden interruption to the audience and continued the show with the remaining guests, showcasing his remarkable ability to recover from unexpected chaos. The Red Fox incident highlights a different form of unpredictability, one rooted not in comedic antics, but in principled defiance, personal habit, and stubborn temperament. Another unforgettable figure who tested Carson's mastery of live television was the irrepressible Don Rickles, the insult comic known for his fearless, improvisational style. In 1976, Rickles famously hijacked The Tonight Show mid-segment, interrupting an ongoing interview with actor Robert Blake. Appearing unannounced and completely unscheduled, Rickles stormed the set, loudly accusing Carson of speaking poorly about him, before physically inserting himself into Blake's interview. The ensuing chaos lasted over 20 minutes, during which Rickles rifled through Carson's desk drawers, mocked him, and poked fun at every aspect of the set while dominating the conversation. Unlike previous guests whose unpredictability was situational or accidental, Rickles' approach was deliberate, a carefully executed performance in total disregard of convention. Carson, momentarily stunned, quickly adapted, understanding that resisting Rickles would only heighten the tension. He allowed Rickles temporary control of the segment, using his wit and experience to maintain a thread of order while letting the unscripted chaos unfold. Audiences at home were captivated, and producers reported a mix of panic and exhilaration in the control room. The Rickles invasion exemplifies Carson's ability to convert potential disaster into entertainment gold, demonstrating that live television required not only preparation, but also an instinctive sense of timing, empathy, and humor. Shelley Winters, the two-time Academy Award-winning actress, added yet another dimension to unhinged guest behavior with her infamous 1975 confrontation with Truman Capote. Known for her fiery temper and unfiltered speech, Winters arrived to discuss her views on Capote's controversial, unpublished work Answer Prayers, in which thinly veiled portrayals of New York socialites appeared. Upon realizing that she recognized herself in one of Capote's characters, Winters erupted in a tirade, attacking Capote verbally with increasing intensity. What made this segment especially challenging for Carson was a need to mediate between two extremely volatile personalities while maintaining the flow of the live broadcast. He positioned himself carefully between the two, subtly controlling the physical space and tone, while interrupting strategically to prevent further escalation. The segment veered dangerously close to an on-air confrontation, yet Carson navigated with grace, using humor, eye contact, and calm presence to protect both guests and the integrity of the show. Observers later described him as acting like a lion tamer, managing two particularly fierce lions, a metaphor that perfectly captures the combination of skill, patience, and authority required. This episode underscores Carson's capacity to handle intense emotional and personal unpredictability, demonstrating a depth of professionalism that extended far beyond mere charm or wit. Taken together, these appearances illustrate the range of challenges Johnny Carson faced with unhinged guests. From principled defiance, as with Red Fox, to anarchic comedy with Don Rickles, to explosive personal confrontation with Shelley Winters, Carson consistently demonstrated adaptability, empathy, and impeccable timing. Each moment was a test not only of his wit, but also of his ability to manage human behavior in high-pressure, live broadcast situations. Unlike many hosts who might have allowed the chaos to dominate, Carson found ways to transform potentially disastrous scenarios into memorable television moments. These segments remain iconic not only because of the guests' outrageous behavior, but also because of Carson's extraordinary skill in maintaining composure, protecting his guests, and creating entertainment that was spontaneous, unpredictable, and endlessly compelling. By the mid-1980s, the landscape of celebrity appearances on late-night television had begun to change. Audiences had grown accustomed to flashy personalities, but few were as deliberately provocative as Madonna. Her 1987 appearance on The Tonight Show was a masterclass in pushing boundaries, testing even Johnny Carson's legendary composure. At the time, Madonna was at the height of her controversial